Hello and welcome to IG Manager TV. I'm Ken Moyer, the lead developer of the IG Manager Backroom Suite. This time of year as we record this, which is the last week of October, one thing enters the minds of many retailers. No, it's not the Halloween candy. You ordered that back in April and you're stuck with it. It's inventory. In general, there are two ways to get the inventory. One is contracting an inventory company, one of which has a name that sounds like a morning talk show host, and they show up and count your store at retail. This is done once or multiple times a year. What's great about these companies is that they show up, count the store, and you get a total with limited impact on your labor. The problem is, unless you pay the money for it, you're only going to get basic valuation of the inventory. You're not going to get department totals, item counts, or anything like that. The other method of getting the inventory is implementing some sort of perpetual inventory system. In a perpetual system, you're maintaining the on-hand count of items as they change through sales, receiving, write-offs, and losses. The plus of this system would be that you have an immediate knowledge of the inventory of your store. Unfortunately, this benefit is hampered by the difficulties required that you run into attempting to maintain the on-hand count of every item in your store. Also, perpetual inventory will also need some sort of full store count to get it started. That's what IG Manager's physical count feature can help you out with, and that's what we're going to go through today. The best way to explain IG Manager's physical count feature is to jump right into a basic count. Now remember, the purpose of the physical count is to collect the current inventory level of an item. This data then can be used for inventory valuation, setting the current on-hand count, or both. For the purposes of this presentation, we'll be working with the goal of getting an inventory valuation report. Those of you who want to do a perpetual inventory, stick with me, because you still need to do a physical count to initialize the current on-hands, and that's what you'll be using. Alright, to start, I'm going to take my handheld unit. As you may or may not know, IG Manager can handle a bunch of different units. The Worthington data systems is what we started with. Any of the browser-based handhelds like the Symbol Falcon. We also have Android and Windows tablet apps. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a Windows-based app so that way we can all watch it together. Alright, once we start the IG Manager handheld, we're going to go ahead and get in there by pressing enter, and I'm going to go ahead and choose inventory control. And of course it asks me, press enter, so I do that. We got two choices right now, so obviously we want to play with physical counts, so we're going to do physical counts. Now for right now, we're going to ignore this count group, which we'll go over later. Remember, we're just doing a basic physical count right now. Alright, so I press enter, and you can see that the screen says enter UPC, and it also says that we're collecting data for the default count group, and it's waiting for the UPC of the first item. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and scan my trusty first item. There you do. And you can see we get the count prompt. At this point we enter the current inventory. And I'm going to say that we have one of this item. So one enter. And we're back to scanning. And this will just keep going on for all the items we're scanning. Now there are two scenarios you could run into while counting items. The first one is that we can scan an item not in the IG Manager file. Now I can do that with this. Now IG Manager will not allow us to count an item that's not in the item file. Why? Well, the purpose of this whole procedure, this physical count thing, is to get some sort of inventory valuation. And we can't do that if the item's not in the file. So we get an opportunity, just like in the standard price verified mode, to add the item on the spot. Actual item entry with some handhelds can be more trouble than it's worth. I mean, they've got itty bitty little buttons, or you've got shift this, shift that to get it in there. So I really don't promote doing that. Usually I would say take the item, throw it in a cart, and let somebody add it in the back and count it later. But you can add it in at the FM if you want to. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Is I'm going to go ahead and add in the item, and I'm going to give it a really basic description called temp inv water, whatever. I'm not going to care about the size. I'm going to pick a department. I'm not going to even care. I don't know what this information is. I'm in the aisle. So I'm back. Now that the item's been added, we can record a count for it, and I'm going to record a count of 5. The next situation we can find ourselves in is we can either run into a straggler item or a whole group of items that we already have counted, but we found in another spot, like in an in-aisle display or on an end cap or hiding under a shelf or something. If we do this, like I'm going to go ahead and scan my first item again, IGManager is going to show me the date and time and the count that we did before and give us 3 options. Yes, I know there's only 2 on the screen, but the third one is to just press enter. And that'll take you back to the entry to scan the next item. The other options are for 1 for add, which means we want to add more to the previous count, or 2 for overwrite, which means we're going to replace the earlier count with this new one. In this case, I'm going to say that I found 9 more. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 9. Oh, I got to first of all put in add, which is going to be 1. And it says the old count is 1. I'm going to add 9. That will make the total count 10 for that particular item. That's all there is for the handheld side of the physical count section. Scan, count, scan, count, scan, count. Pretty simple. Now, so to quickly review, any item you count must exist in the item file. If you scan an item that's already been counted, you're going to get the opportunity to either add more to the previous count or replace the previous count with the new count. So now let's go to the IGManager back office software and see how the counts are stored. Okay, physical count functions are found here in the DSD module of IGManager. Bum, 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 bum. There they are. And here we can see the info for the 2 item counts we recorded. Well, we got the count group, which was default because once again we didn't choose a specific group. Item code, the count, and you'll notice that the first item there, we originally scanned 1, then we added 9 for a grand total of 10, and you see it right there. There's the department and the date and time of the count. All these counts are considered pending counts because we've counted the items, but the counts have not been applied to their items' current on-hand counts. Now, if we were setting up our initial counts for some sort of perpetual inventory, we would want to apply these pending counts, but for the purpose of this video, we're performing an inventory just to get an inventory valuation. So we're not going to be posting these counts. Since we're only working with pending counts, for this scenario, 2 buttons we're interested in, and that's the report pending counts and delete pending counts. Obviously, the delete pending accounts is going to delete the pending counts. And we don't want to do that since we just spent all that time counting our huge 15-item inventory. So that leaves us just with the reporting pending counts. If we click on this, it's going to bring up a printer dialog so that we can pick what printer we want to run it on. For now, we're just going to let Windows choose whatever it wants to. So I'm going to say OK. And now on the report, let's bring it up so we can all see it. All right. On the report, we can see that count group again, the item code, the date and the time. Then we get some information from the item, and you can see our first item had a vendor of test. There's its reorder number, description, size. Then over here we have our count. Then you have what we now basing it on the data in the file. We know that the unit cost is $1.16. There's 24 cases, 24 in a case, for whatever reason we have that on there. And we have 10 of them, so our extended cost is actually $11.62. All right. The unit retail is $179, so that gives us an extended retail of $17.90. Now, at this time, the retail line only shows the regular retail for calculating the extended retail. It will not take into account sales or TPRs or anything like that. And as I said, when you look at our first item, everything looks great. But if you look at our second item, there's some not so right information there. In this case, it's all zeros. It could be garbage. If remember, the second item was scanned, but it wasn't in the file, so we quickly built one so we could count it down. But this isn't going to make any sense until we actually get the information correct on that item. So now, through the magic of video, I'm going to go into IGManager, complete the information for this item, and then come back into my physical count. And voila, we are back, and we now have our first item and second item have information. So now the second item there, which we had 5 of, shows an extended cost of this and a retail of that. So at this point, we've got what we wanted, which was at the bottom of this report: totals, a total inventory valuation. When we're done with these counts, we should delete them. That's the bare bones of a physical count function. But now we've seen how the basics work. Let's go over some features that we can use to make the information a little bit more usable. When we started our physical count on the handheld, we ignored the count group prompt and allowed the IGManager just to use the default. If you want, you can use the count group to segregate your counts into different areas of the store: sales, back room, the storage shed, Narnia, anywhere you have stock stored. Now, if you are using the physical count to initialize your on-hand counts, I recommend that you use only one count group to minimize posting problems later. So let's go back to our count and count our 2 items again. This time we're going to use the sales floor and the back room as 2 areas we're going to count. So we go back into our handheld, and I'm just going to go ahead and restart the FM again. I'm going to go into inventory control just like we did before. I'm going to do a physical count. All right, now our count group. All right, I'm going to start with the sales floor, so I'm just going to put in the word sales. Oh, hold on. Sales. There. Okay, now you can see that it says enter UPC and it says sales at the bottom. So I go ahead and scan our first item. And I'm going to have a count. There was 1 in the first count, so we have 1 of that. Scan my second item. Now remember, when we scanned this guy the first time, he wasn't in the item files. We had to go through that whole thing and making a temp. Now that he's there, it's not giving us the question. And we're just going to go ahead and do 5. All right. So now we're going to go to the back area. The easiest way to do that is just reset the FM. Go back into inventory control. Inventory control, physical count. Enter count group. This time we're going to do the back, for the back room. All right, we scan our first item, this item again, and wait for it, nothing happens. But you say, wait, I've already counted that item. Well, we did count that item, but that was in the sales count group. We're working in the back count group. And we haven't counted it here yet, so there's no problem. So I'm going to go ahead and enter 9 like I did last time. So now let's go back to the physical count screen in DSD. And when we do there, we can see that we have our counts. We see the 2 for the sales floor and the 1 for the back room. And if we go ahead and run the report pending counts, you can see we have it broken out. Back is grouped together, and then sales. And we have our first item, 9 and 1, which adds up to 10, and then 5. We have the same totals, but we can see a dividing up of the subtotal for the back room, and for the sales floor, and then for the whole store. Right. So we're looking at the review of the pending counts, and obviously in your store you're going to have a lot of them. So we want some way to kind of narrow it down a little bit. And what we can do is we can use this area over here called limit search. So we can go ahead and, for example, we just want to see the ones we counted in the back room. So go over here to count group and hit back and tab out of it, and it's now only showing me the counts that were done in the back area. This limit search area also affects the delete pending counts and the report pending counts. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit report pending counts right now, and all we see is the back group. This limit group can also be done by date. So if you're doing your count over a group of days, then you can see what you counted each day. You can also break it up by department, so you can post those or report them. And you can just do that, or you can do any combination of them: back room, department, counted yesterday, that type of thing. Any of those, which one over there. All by just entering in those values in the search engine. All right, now that we've jumped all over creation with this physical count function, let's go back and go over all the steps that we need to do in the correct order to complete a physical count. The first thing we need to do is clear the pending counts. They're old, we don't want them. And you do this from the physical count area in DSD. Then, you need to determine what, if any, separate areas of your store you're going to use for the count. Remember, if you're setting up for perpetual inventory and you're going to use this to set on hands, only use one area. Don't divide it up. Then you got to go out and count. That's the easy part. Scan, count, scan, count, scan, count. And then once you're done scanning and counting, you report the counts once again in physical counts. This is where you may want to use a different printer than your regular printer, like a PDF printer or the EPS printer driver that comes in Windows 7, so that you can get a printout, not just a printout, but an electronic copy of the inventory report. Well, that about covers it for physical counts. Remember, physical counts can be used to either get just a one-off inventory valuation, and it can also be used to initialize the on-hand count for some sort of perpetual inventory system on the whole store or a selection of items. You could also use physical count for those times when you need to get a count of a section of the store. For example, we just recently went through Hurricane Sandy, and there are some stores that have lost power and will be writing off the frozen in the deli department. One way they could do that, once they get power back, turn on the handheld unit, start a physical count with a group called BAD, and count down all the items that they're writing off, and they can use that to report to the insurance company. Well, thank you for taking your time to watch this episode of IG Manager TV, and happy counting.